from.
So I love being a yoga teacher in this time because I actually think that yoga teachers can be movement builders and we can inspire a collective shift in consciousness that can maybe tip the political scales.
So it could be that, like a lot of people, you have the question in mind, like, why does yoga and why would a yoga teacher training matter right now in the times we live in, where it often feels like the world is kind of falling apart? And for many of us, this presidency is a kind of bizarre, kind of surreal seeming nightmare. Not to overstate it, but it can seem that way. So I thought it'd be interesting for us to have a conversation about why yoga still matters and why how we teach and how we train teachers, and specifically matters in the context of our times.
Well, I think for me, the thing that is so important about my yoga practice is it's a practice of being with. It's where I learned to stay and stay whether something was comfortable or uncomfortable. And right now, I think it's a really important practice to be able to be with, to stay with discomfort, because it's our ability to stay with discomfort in ourselves that allows us the capacity to be with someone else's discomfort, and also to just be with somebody else, period. To be with someone, especially someone who doesn't believe the same things we do, who disagrees. And I think that's a really important ability to have right now. So this first, can I be with, so that I can be with you, and I can be with you even if I don't agree with you.
Yeah, we were talking about how yoga can also inspire a shift in people's values, right? Our ability to be present with discomfort, as well as and that ability to be present with discomfort means we're not invested in denying the pain of others, the discomfort of others. And I often think about Michelle Alexander, who was a civil rights lawyer, an African-American woman, and last year she announced that she was moving to theology, and she made this statement about how more than a political shift, we need a cultural and a moral shift. And that was really inspiring because I feel like as a yoga teacher, I have this captive audience of people who want to get healthier, want to be conscious, and I have an opportunity to share that our well-being is bound up in the well-being of others, and inspire people to think about well-being as collective care, not just individual care. And I really see the root of a lot of what's happening now as a overzealous individualism that tells people, well, you're responsible for your happiness, and there's, you don't deserve support, and people are being dehistoricized. We don't see the history that we're coming from. So I love being a yoga teacher in this time because I actually think that yoga teachers can be movement builders and we can inspire a collective shift in consciousness that can maybe tip the political scales.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I feel like for many of us who are sort of more left-leaning, there was so much enthusiasm and excitement and a feeling that we'd kind of arrived when Barack Obama was elected. And for me, it was particularly powerful because I grew up in South Africa. I grew up under the very, very oppressive realities of apartheid. And apartheid was not only state kind of institutionalized racism where it was against the law for black people to live in the same areas as white people. It was against the law for people of different races to have sexual relationships. Very, very intense, overtly racist regime. But there also were all sorts of limitations on free speech. There was one official TV channel that told the government's version of the news. All newspapers were censored. So I grew up in that kind of environment, and I fled under threat of being imprisoned for 6 years because I had refused to support the military, to be involved in the military that was supporting that horrific and I would really say evil regime. And I came to the United States very, very idealistic and very optimistic, and really with this sense of America as this great bastion of freedom and equality. And of course, I grew a little older and I saw a little bit more about what life was really like here. And I love this country and I love what this country stands for in essence. And I know that there is a very complex and like a patchwork history of shadow and light that goes into all of this. And the place that I'm arriving in right now is feeling like we have to do it. We have to participate. We have to be re-inspired and reinvigorated. And it's through what we do in difficult times that the world is transformed. It's through how we show up, how we relate to one another, how we hang in there at those really uncomfortable edges and ask difficult questions, keep educating ourselves, keep trying to understand where the other side is coming from, and how we make really emotionally intelligent and rational arguments about why freedom and equality and there being a place for all people in our country really is true. Why that really matters and why it's really true. And I think the places that it's really true that are often missing in our public discourse have to do with an emotional, psychological, embodied kind of empathic connection to one another.
Yeah.
And so for me, the way that I try to share yoga in the world and the way that I'm passionate about training teachers is informed by all of that.
Yeah.
And to me, that's why it actually matters really deeply. That in these difficult and trying times, we have practices, we have ideas, we have ways of being with ourselves and others that are healing and inclusive and trying to move that conversation forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think about, what do yogis love to say? We love to say namaste. We talk about yoga as being about oneness. And a truly democratic society, a truly inclusive society doesn't otherize people, doesn't alienate them. And right now what's happening politically is all about separation and walls and othering and who's included and who's not included, who gets to feel safe, who gets to have access to resources. So for me, this is the most natural expression of yoga, of unity, is to contemplate a cultural system, a political system that includes and cares for all.
Yeah.
And I come back to this, just the basic idea behind yoga is that it's a practice, right? It's something that we commit ourselves to and we show up. It's non-negotiable. We come back over and over and over again. And I think back in history as what you're talking about, like with people like Mandela and Dr. King and Gandhi, who they were, through who they were and what they practiced, created incredible cultural shifts. And for me, I think of, a lot of the major cultural shifts that have been most important came because of practice first and then policy. And so our practice is, even if we don't think of ourselves as political or activists, how you be and what you practice is impactful.
Absolutely.